What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today I thought we'd take a look at the buck of the month for July of 2024. Now this one just came in, but at the time of uploading the video is still in stock on the buck website, so I'll be sure to link to that in the video description. Figured we could take a look at it now while it's still in stock and then maybe revisit it in more depth in the future. But the July 2024 buck of the month model is the 250 Saunter. The Saunter is one of their slip joint models, modern construction, and this one's been dressed up with the America CamoCarbon Carbon Fiber covers, which look excellent. Obviously the red, white, and blue of it ties perfectly into that Independence Day theme that Buck was going for the July buck of the month, and I think are especially powerful considering this is an American-made knife. Just kind of ties it all together very, very nicely. This one was or is limited to 500 pieces, but isn't priced so differently from the base model. Notably does have the same 154 cm blade steel that we see on that base model, but this one's priced at $139.99 versus $127.49 for the regular version. So a difference of about $12.50, which isn't too significant of a price difference considering we're getting the more premium materials, and carbon fiber is notoriously much more difficult to work with than most materials. So let's go ahead and get this one deployed. You can see long pull deployment on here, also very pinchable. So if you prefer the pinch grip, definitely can go that route as well. But it has that long pull deployment, very smooth deployment, but on the lighter side, not too light, I'd say about a 4.5 or so. Also notable is that we do not have a half stop, so we can blow right past that into our fully deployed position, and very snappy into that open and closed position. One of my favorite touches on this limited edition version are the red, white, and blue logo etching on the blade. Ties together really nicely with the America Camo Carbon. You can see we have the buck in red, we have that white anvil, and of course the blue USA, and really just ties in very nicely. I think it looks great. This is a smaller to medium sized knife at 6.12 inches overall, but we still get a pretty generous handle at 3.75 inches. So that does allow me to wrap all 4 fingers around that, no problem. Incredibly ergonomic handle, and so that feels great. One thing worth noting though is you can see these kind of raised sections at the front and back of the knife that are really meant to lock your hand in place from sliding forward or backward, which it does very effectively. However, that does keep my pinky from kind of sitting in that section. I could sit it on this raised section here in the back, but for me that was a little bit uncomfortable, so I tend to spread out a little bit further, place my pinky on that lanyard hole on the back. So technically it's not actually wrapped around the handle, but it's still a very secure grip and it feels great. And so I prefer this grip. Obviously everyone's hands are a little bit different, but for me this works really well, and I don't mind that I'm not fully wrapped around the handle with my pinky because it's still so comfortable and very secure. We have the drop point style blade on this version. The base model gives you the choice between a drop point and a clip point. This version only is available in the drop point, so you don't get a choice. I probably would have chosen the drop point anyway though if you did, because I think it works really well with this handle shape, and overall is a very sleek looking design, not including the covers, which I do like the look of the covers, but even without that I think a really sleek design on this knife. 2.375 inches in the blade, again 154 cm with that Boss heat treat as we can see here on the back, or maybe we can see if the camera picks it up, but it has that Boss heat treat as well. And then the only other markings on here are the 250 and that Z icon, which I'm not sure what the Z is. The 250 is our model, the 250 Saunter. When I first got it in, I just assumed it was a serial number, and I got lucky and my serial number matched the model number, which I thought was pretty cool. But then Jesse McJames, who has a channel here on YouTube, showed me a picture of his, which is not the buck of the month version, and it has the same marking, so that's clearly the model number. So these are not serialized on the knife itself or on the certificate of authenticity. So no big deal there, but really great action on this one. Again, it's super smooth. It is a little bit on the lighter side, but nice and snappy. You may hear that there's a stop pin in here, so that does affect the acoustics a little bit, but gonna protect the integrity of your edge for a little bit longer, keep it from ever rubbing up on those springs. Also really nice and snappy into that open position as well. So great walk and talk on this one. As far as the rest of the fit and finish goes, I'd say it's pretty solid. There are some minor things which I'm not especially worried about at all, to be honest, but I know may be a deal breaker for other people, so it's worth bringing up. So first and foremost is the blade centering. It isn't perfect. It is slightly, ever so slightly favoring that pal side. Not enough to create any rub. If it created rub, I'd be more concerned, but even when using that long pull, it's not enough pressure to push it into the liner on that pile side, so not something I'm super concerned about, and it's not even that obvious. It is favoring it, but it's not super obvious. The other thing is that there's a very insignificant gap here on the spring between the springs and liners, not enough to catch your fingers on, but visually are able to see that. I think, again, so minor that I'm not super concerned with it. The only other thing worth noting is with the Camo Carbon. I said it's notoriously difficult to work with, and you do see that a little bit around the pivot in particular. And it's not especially obvious. I didn't notice it at first until I started looking at it with kind of a fine-tooth comb, and it is a little bit chewed up around that pivot. Nice pivot here also with that Buck logo, but a little bit chewed up here. It's slightly lower than the rest of the covers there. Not significant. It doesn't seem like anything's going to chip away, and it's pretty smoothed out overall, so I don't think I'm going to catch on it too much, but it's like that on both sides. So we see it here in the blue segment. On the show side, if we flip over to the pile side, the opposite side of the pivot has a smaller section that's kind of a line here that's chunked out of it as well. But again, not something I'm really noticing with my hands when I run over it. It's just something you can see if you look at it very, very closely. And so those are the only fit and finish things. Overall, I'd say it's nearly perfect. Now, I did mention this being a modern slip joint. So I already mentioned the stop pin. We also have that lanyard hole in the back. So if you are someone who likes a lanyard, it is there, I think, really well placed as well. I've been wanting to try out more lanyards and beads, but haven't really gotten too into it so far, but definitely gonna be kind of trying it out a little bit more in the future, so I may throw one on here. Also, we have the tooled hardware. So on the show side, you can see none of it's tooled. We have the Buck logo that I already mentioned on the pivot, but the other body screws are also non-tooled on the show side, which is kind of a nice touch, keeps everything looking pretty clean. Flipping over to the pile side though, we have a T8 pivot screw, T6 body screws. Definitely would have preferred seeing T8 throughout, but don't mind that honestly as much on a slip joint because I've never taken apart a slip joint, don't know that I ever will, and so it's less of an issue since I'm not going to be removing those screws and have to worry about stripping them and switching screws. Would definitely prefer T8 still across the board, but a little bit less of an issue on this knife. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one though down in the comments below. If you have any of the previous Buck of the Month, this is only my second one overall. My last one was May of 2022, and there's been a lot that I like that for whatever reason, I just don't see them in time. They're usually sold out by the time I want them. There are some that I do see in time and just don't draw me in enough that I want to pick them up. But I do want to start doing a little bit more of these because I don't have a ton of Buck knives, but I do like getting kind of cool versions of them. So if I'm going to get them anyway in the future, might as well get a cool version, the Buck of the Month version. Typically they'll be 500 produced. I've seen, I think, 250 and 750, maybe even 1,000, not this year, but maybe 1,000 in previous iterations. But they usually range somewhere in there between 500 and 750 for the most part. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on this one down in the comments. If you picked one up, what you think of it, and anything else you'd like to comment. Always enjoy interacting in the comment section. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, definitely consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or joining the channel as a member. They all help the channel out a ton. And as usual, hope you have a great one and take care.